This video was brought to you by CuriosityStream. As you probably noticed, Europe is currently suffering through a pretty severe energy crisis. Largely thanks to Putin's invasion of Ukraine and the accompanying disruption to Russian gas exports, European gas prices are literally 15 times higher than their historic average. And Eurozone inflation is currently sitting at a record high of nearly 9%. However, despite being more reliant on Russian gas than most of their European counterparts, Germany has so far stubbornly continued with the scheduled closure of its nuclear power plants, instead preferring to restart old and inefficient coal plants to make up the shortfall. However, with energy prices continuing to rise and anti-nuclear sentiment in the German public softening, a U-turn on this front has begun to look increasingly likely. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Germany's potential U-turn on nuclear power, how much it would actually do to ease the current energy crisis, and what this whole episode tells us about European energy politics more generally. So before we get into the most recent developments, a bit of context. While Germany's political establishment has become staunchly anti-nuclear in the past 25 years or so, it didn't always used to be this way. In the late 1960s, the German authorities believed that nuclear power would play a key role in the country's energy mix going forward. And between 1957 and 1989, Germany launched around 110 reactors, including research units, which generated about a quarter of the country's electricity. However, widespread anti-nuclear protests triggered by Chernobyl and other nuclear incidents in the 20th century put pressure on the German nuclear industry. And the electoral success of the German Green Party, who have their historical roots in the anti-nuclear environmentalism of the 70s and 80s, provided the final nail in the coffin. 2 years after the German Greens formed a government with the SPD in 1998, they reached what's known as the nuclear consensus with the big four German utility companies, which basically involved phasing out all currently operating nuclear power plants by 2022 and banning the construction of any new ones. Now, in 2010, the phase-out was briefly extended to 2036, but Merkel quickly U-turned after the Fukushima disaster in 2011, promising to once again completely phase out nuclear power in the country by 2022. Now, this might sound a little bit reactionary, but it is worth saying that the Fukushima incident came 12 days before the Baden-Württemberg regional elections, where, after 58 years in power, the CDU was under threat from the Green Party. So it's kind of understandable politically why Merkel wanted to backtrack. Anyway, until very recently, Merkel's position had enjoyed cross-party consensus, with only the AfD pushing to keep nuclear power plants online. And this broadly reflected public opinion at the time. Polling from June 2012, for example, found that 73% of Germans supported the 2022 phase-out, with just 16% opposing it. Anyway, when the German Greens again came to power last year as part of the so-called traffic light coalition, led by Chancellor Olaf Scholz, many people assumed that they would continue with their planned phase-out. And originally, that's exactly what happened. Their joint manifesto instead advocated for more investment in renewable and hydrogen technology. And in December, they went ahead with the scheduled shutdown of 3 of Germany's 6 remaining nuclear plants. So it was still clear that the Germans were very much against nuclear power. However, the general uptick in global energy prices, exacerbated by Putin's invasion of Ukraine in late February, has begun to put pressure on this position. Gas accounts for about 15% of Germany's electricity generation, and as we mentioned at the top, European gas prices are literally 15 times higher than their historic average. Now, given that Germany uses about 30% of its gas for electricity generation, if those 6 nuclear power plants were kept online to replace the electricity generation shortfall, Germany could significantly reduce its gas demand and bring down gas prices for domestic heating and heavy industry. But while Habeck implied that the government were considering restarting their nuclear plants in late February, insisting that there were, quote, no taboos when it came to achieving energy independence, he did quickly backtrack, and in early March insisted that the 3 remaining nuclear power plants would be shut down on schedule at the end of 2022. However, gas prices continued to rise, so the German government restarted 16 coal and oil plants, which went offline in 2021, with a total capacity of about 8 gigawatts, with them opting for these coal and oil plants instead of restarting their nuclear ones. Then, in April, Habeck claimed that the plants couldn't be restarted for technical and legal reasons, claiming that their licenses had expired and that they were out of fuel rods. Now, while this was technically true, Germany's leading provider of nuclear security testing has made it clear that Germany's plants are in excellent condition, so getting licenses wouldn't be a problem. And Westinghouse, an established supplier of German nuclear plants, has said that they'll be able to deliver new fuel rods by 2023. However, European gas prices have continued to rise thanks to disruption in Russian gas exports, which has forced Germany to implement some controversial energy-saving measures. And it also seems to have softened the government's position on nuclear. In mid-July, Habeck's ministry said that they would conduct stress tests to find out if they would need to keep the 3 working reactors going, and Scholz admitted it, quote, might make sense to keep the nuclear reactors online. Now, this partial U-turn does reflect German public opinion. A poll by Welt in early August found that 82% of Germans, including 68% of Green Party voters, want to keep the remaining nuclear power plants online at least temporarily, with 41% in favour of keeping them on indefinitely. And similar polling found that support for nuclear energy among the German public had jumped from about 50% in 2020 to 65% today. So if Germany did decide to keep its nuclear power plants on, what sort of a difference would that actually make? Well, probably not a massive difference. The 3 functioning reactors currently account for about 6% of Germany's total electricity generation. And even if they restarted the 3 reactors they shut down last year, that number would only come up to about 12%, which is still less than the 15% of electricity that's currently generated by gas. It's also worth saying that while nuclear might be significantly more consistent than renewables, technical problems do mean that they're still not 100% reliable, as the French are currently discovering. Nonetheless, this would still make a dent in both gas and electricity prices. And, well, in a time of crisis, every little helps. So, what does the German experience tell us about European energy politics more generally? Well, it's a single data point, so we should be wary of inferring too much, but it does suggest that the transition to low-carbon energy and away from Russian energy exports will require compromise. Governments might have to bend their rules a bit, as the Germans may have to do with their nuclear licensing, as well as doing away with their ideological attitudes towards certain energy sources, like the Greens' anti-nuclear sentiment. And this is sort of unsurprising. The energy transition was never going to be easy, especially in the context of a war in Europe, but it does suggest that the politics of energy are about to get rockier. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see whether Germany does put their nuclear power plants back online. But if you want more TLDR, you should check out Nebula. You've likely heard us talk about Nebula before, but give me 1 minute to explain why you should care. And as always with TLDR, there's 3 points. Firstly, signing up to Nebula gets you a ton of additional TLDR content. We have a whole bunch of videos exclusively for Nebula, including all of these full-length TLDR videos, as well as exclusive interviews and a bunch of fun videos, like our studio tour and our team attempting the British citizenship test. And that number doesn't even include the daily briefing, so there's a ton of extra TLDR every single day. Secondly, everything on Nebula is ad-free, and that's not just TLDR either. That's all of your favorite creators, like Wendover Productions, Real Life Law, Polymatter, Legal Eagle, Half as Interesting, and many others. And all of this content is ad-free, so there's no mid-rolls, and I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. Thirdly, signing up and watching on Nebula really helps the channel. Here's the maths. TLDR viewers signing up to Nebula has significantly improved our ability to monetize our content, which in turn has allowed us to begin employing more people and investing more in new technology to improve our content. Now, you might not have noticed it immediately, but you will very soon, and signing up is super helpful. So you're convinced, right? Did I do it in a minute? Who knows, this is pre-recorded. Anyway, if you do want to sign up to Nebula, I've got good news, because we've done a deal with CuriosityStream, home to the best documentaries available online. So if you sign up to their streaming service using the link in the description, you'll get CuriosityStream for the crazy low price of $14.79 a year, and you'll also get access to Nebula. That's right, 2 streaming services for less than $1 a month. And by the way, CuriosityStream is awesome. It contains absolutely boatloads of high-quality documentaries on all kinds of topics that I know TLDR viewers are going to love. So if you want to get both for less than $15 a year, then the link is in the description. And if not, well, you can't say I haven't tried to convince you. Thanks for your support.